Prepare your ears, humans. Happy, Sad, Confused begins now.
Today on Happy, Sad, Confused, it's time to preview my favorite time of year for movies. The fall film season is upon us. We're talking Joker, Wicked, Gladiator, and the festivals. What can we expect out of Telluride in Toronto? What's the buzz? What are our best guesses at what's going to make it through the award season? Well, breaking it all down with me today is Matt Neglia. He's the owner and editor-in-chief of Next Best Picture. Matt sees it all. He follows it all way more closely than pretty much anybody I know. Matt, welcome back to the podcast. This is becoming an annual tradition. Welcome.
I could not be more excited to hear you say that. You know how much I revere and just love your work, Josh. And so to be here again 2 years in a row is a thrill for me. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, like I said, I meant what I said. You really know this stuff backwards and forwards, so I can't think of a better person to talk to about all of this. First of all, we have a lot to cover because this is about to be a very busy time of year for folks like us, and it's all good problems because this is the good stuff. This is the best films. But first, before we get into the festivals, let's just take kind of like a temperature read of like where we're at, because last year at this time, we already had experienced Barbenheimer, which ended up being two of the biggest players, Barbie and Oppenheimer, which obviously dominated. This year, Dune. What else? Is there anything else that's gonna, you think, last through the award season that we've already seen?
I think Sing Sing from A24, unless if they pick something up later on in the season, I think that's going to be a priority for them. It's gotten excellent reviews since it premiered at Toronto last year. Coleman Domingo hot off of his Oscar nomination for Rustin from last year, so you know he's on people's minds. And there's such a great story there to tell with regards to the cast and also what the film is just also about. It really resonates with people in a strong way, and I think that that's one that, I know it's kind of struggling at the box office at the moment, but right. I do believe that critics will go to bat for it, keep it in the conversation. And once people see it, how can they deny how incredibly powerful it is?
This is a good example of like a film that like did do some of the festivals last year, as I recall, right? It debuted and they kind of decided to strategically hold it. And you're right. Sometimes it is that kind of 1-2 punch. Like Coleman had such an amazing season last year. And now it's like, okay, maybe here's the opportunity to acknowledge him. All right. So moving, and then Dune. I mean, Dune, it seems like right now, given the lay of the land, this is going to get a slew of nominations. Who knows if it wins, but it's going to get a lot in there. Right.
I don't know if it's going to get the same 10 as the first film did necessarily, but I know that there is a lot of banging of the drum to get Denis Villeneuve into Best Director this time. He missed out famously on the first film. I still don't know how the hell that happened.
Right.
But I think that it's definitely a huge technical player. So there's no reason why it should not be contending again for cinematography, makeup, editing. These are things that the film may even have some, wins walking in the door for visual effects, sound, who knows? Right. I think that even though Warner Brothers has other contenders this year, that should be, if not their number one priority, definitely certainly near the top.
Yeah, I guess on the acting categories, we'll see the lay of the land the rest of the year, but that's more challenging. I mean, I'd love to see Austin Butler get a push. He was awesome in that, but we'll see.
He was so great.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into, we're going to touch briefly on Venice before getting to two of our favorite festivals that we actually get to attend. So Venice kind of kicks it off right before Telluride. As we tape this, we're just days away from Venice, and it's opening up with a bang with a previous callback to an opening night film. What's the big movie that we're all going to be talking about in a few days out of Venice?
Well, Beetlejuice is the opening night film.
Oh, right.
From Tim Burton. Yeah, and this could very well be a return to form for Burton, who has been, I think, running on autopilot to some degree these last couple of years with some of his projects. They just don't have the same feeling that some of his older films do. And there's a multitude of reasons for that. This could be the one where he really gets back in touch with his more practical, creative side. And they've already been highlighting how much of the film's effects are not just done practically, but also is merging well with the visual effects. So that could create a technical player. I know people were hoping that Michael Keaton could contend also for an acting nomination. Who knows this time around? But that'll certainly be creating a lot of buzz on opening night. And then before we get to Telluride itself,
Right.
there's so much playing the next like 2 days, and it's curious to me to see which ones do go over. But I think the ones that we know for sure are Maria, Pablo Larraín's film starring Angelina Jolie. I think, you know, based on the success of Jackie and Spencer and just following kind of like in a similar mold as that, this is one that, you know, you can already probably chalk up to being a Best Actress contender for Jolie, and who knows how much further than that, right?
And this
then
one,
there's,
I
of
should
course,
say that
yeah,
doesn't even have or at least announced distribution yet. We don't know
not
where
yet.
that's actually
Yeah.
landing, right?
And that could be for a multitude of different reasons. People might be waiting to see what the overall reception to it is, because Jackie and Spencer, although critically acclaimed, you know, did start to fizzle out by the time it got to award season. They still got those Best Actress nominations, and Jackie got 2 additional nominations. But in the end, those were not Best Picture contenders. Pablo Larraín did not get into director. So I'm wondering if they're waiting to see what the reception is before anyone jumps on it. And then again, who knows, maybe even then, because I've talked to a lot of studios who were saying, you know what, we're just coming off of COVID, the strikes. We have our slate. We're firmly sticking with our slate. You know, who knows what might happen? Maybe we'll pick something up. But for the most part, everybody's kind of staying firm right now and not jumping to add something else to their repertoire.
Right. And then so that's obviously Pablo Larraín kind of like has that niche audience. And as you said, he kind of like always delivers for his leading lady. On the leading man side, we're going to go back to Joker again with Todd Phillips. Joaquin, who's not having the best PR moment right now. For those that don't know, he just dropped out of Todd Haynes' film and kind of has wreaked havoc on that production. Who knows if or when we're ever going to see that movie. Can that have a real effect? Like, we think that's he's dropped down in terms of probability of a Best Actor nomination thanks to this PR nightmare?
I think so, personally, because the story has gotten around now so much. This is a town where everybody knows everybody, and people talk to each other, and word like this is obviously not positive. And no one on his side has come forward and said that it was a medical issue or like just something that could give some sort of justification for why he would drop out. So because of this, I think that if it just was what's been reported, which is he got cold feet, decided to just back out, you know, there could be lawsuits involved. The producers have been vocal about their dissatisfaction. What will be very interesting to see is if he says anything at Venice for the press conference. That will probably be the number one question on everybody's mind, which is kind of unfortunate because it will be overshadowing the film, possibly Gaga in that moment. But, you know, we'll wait and see what he says. I do believe that this is a situation where kind of even before this happened, I always felt like Gaga would be the star of this film, and Joaquin already had his moment. It made sense for him to almost like how Leonardo DiCaprio was last year with Lily Gladstone. This is your moment. Let me step aside and support you how I can. I always kind of figured that that was how this was going to go anyway, but now he would be wise to take that approach more than ever to try and not only help build up his image, but also salvage the film.
It makes sense. And obviously, like Joker, FOLIE do, which is somewhat, no one's seen it yet, but has musical elements to it. Gaga, this is probably just like her third acting, you know, at least film acting role. And obviously didn't make it for Gucci, but Star is Born, like just barely almost got that award for that one. So yeah, it does feel poised to have a moment. And Joker, like, will also fit, you know, there aren't a lot of like giant outside of Dune we just talked about, like of the 4-quadrant, like billion-dollar juggernauts that could be in the awards race. And the first Joker was just I think it shocked a lot of people just on the box office and the awards side. So I'm very curious to see if it can be as big on both sides for this one. But the fact that at least it's not doing the same thing, it's doing some riff on a musical with Gaga, it has me excited, I think, you know, so we'll see.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for it. I mean, I thought the first Joker was fine, and, you know, it had elements that I really loved and other elements that I found to be very questionable. I think the reaction to that movie and the way people talked about it was more fascinating to me than the movie itself. And so with Gaga being an added element, the musical part of it, like you were talking about, there's now so many other things to distinguish this from the first film that I'm more excited than ever to just see what is the final result, how are people going to respond to it, and how does the industry respond to it. We already know it's going to make over $1 billion. We already know it's going to be financially successful, no matter what the reception to the film is. But what is the reception to the film amongst Academy voters, seeing as how they did go, no pun intended or pun intended, maybe Gaga over the first film, giving it a leading Oscar nomination tally for, I think it was 11, if I remember correctly. And so this is a case where sequels don't typically tend to outshine the first films with the Academy. It's rare that it happens, but it does happen. But am I expecting this thing to get more than 11 Oscar nominations? No.
Yeah.
Am I expecting it to still be a contender for Warner Brothers? Yeah. Even if it isn't a Best Picture contender, you can probably bet just from the trailer alone, cinematography, sound, these are elements that will probably be in contention. And so it'll be interesting. It'll be very, very interesting. I have a feeling it's, like you said, it's going to probably be the most talked about film of the festival, maybe overall.
Right.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something you'd love to learn? Yes, as an adult, because as an adult, we really don't make time to learn new things as often as we'd like. It feels like that's been lost to our childhood selves, right? But that's just insane, because we can still learn new things. We can learn to play the piano and read 1,000 books and learn a new language. Therapy can help you reconnect with that initial sense of wonder, because your quote-unquote back to school era can truly come at any age. Therapy is so important. If you've benefited from therapy, you know what I'm talking about. I benefited from therapy, friends and family have. That's why BetterHelp is such an important sponsor of Happy, Sad, Confused. If you've been thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. They make it so easy. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your very busy schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire, and you get matched with a licensed therapist. Plus, you can switch your therapist at any time, no additional charges. So rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp today. Visit BetterHelp.com/HSC today to get 10% off your first month. That's right. BetterHelp, HELP.com/HSC.
All right, so let's get into maybe, I don't want to speak for you, but certainly my personal favorite to go to the last few years has been Telluride. And those that have heard us talk about Telluride know the spiel a little bit, but unique for many reasons. They don't officially announce the lineup until the festival launches. So Matt and I know through the reading the tea leaves, we probably know a good, I would say, 3/4 of the lineup. Maybe we have some very strong guesses. So let's get into it. My favorite festival. So what are the ones to watch for? Some of the stuff presumably you've already seen even at Cannes, but what are the top 3 or 4? Run through some of your favorites that you expect to see at Telluride this year.
That I've already seen?
Sure, let's start there.
Okay, so of the ones that I've seen that I know are going, Anora from Sean Baker, the Palme d'Or winner from Cannes, was my favorite film from Cannes overall, and it had some really tight competition in that regard too. So this movie, I think, is Sean Baker's moment. I really believe that this movie is going to cause a stir anywhere where it goes, for mostly positive reasons, I believe. I think everyone's going to just fall head over heels in love with Mikey Madison in this movie. Her performance is extraordinary. The movie is very sneaky in how it delivers its gut punch to you. But I think it's funny. It's energetic. It's got this vitality to it that you get a sense of in all of his other films, right? Recently, I know everyone has been really going over the side since, Tangerine Florida Project, and now most recently Red Rocket. But I think this is going to be even bigger than any of those films for him. Financially, critically, I can just see this being, I mean, honestly, if I'm being completely serious with you, I really could see this going all the way.
Wow.
to Oscar night, like in a very, very big way. It depends on how Neon plays their cards with it, but it's the real deal for sure.
So a bit of a crowd pleaser. It just works for an audience in your experience. And
Absolutely.
It sounds, and a star making people. We love to see kind of like a star making moment. And Mikey Madison has been popping up in things, whether it's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, etc. But it seems like she's poised for a moment.
Yeah. And then Amelia Perez, Netflix will be bringing this over. Of course,
Yeah.
this is obviously a huge contender across the board. Jacques Audiard is directing, and it's like a virtuoso piece of direction from him, from the editing, the cinematography, the sound work. I mean, it's bombastic and it's crazy, and it takes a lot of swings. I mean, like a lot, to the point that some of them may strike out and miss. I did hear some polarizing reactions to it. But for those that it connected with, they loved it. And I found it to be audacious enough that I personally connected with it, and I've had a great time with it overall.
And it should be noted, correct me if I'm wrong, the 3 leading actresses shared the Best Actress prize at Cannes. The leading trans actress, forgive me, I don't remember her name. I haven't seen her work before, but audiences will know Zoe Saldana and Selena Gomez, and presumably the Amelia Perez, the actress of the title, by the end of this award season.
Definitely, like, get familiar with her name, Carla Sofia Gasson. She is, I think, going to be the breakout of this movie in a very, very major way. Like, everyone's going to be lining up, I think, to want to praise her, give her some sort of awards recognition. We were talking about like breakthrough, so star making performances. Like, that's, to me, as you know, in the case of, like you said before, like Mikey Madsen, like we had seen her before. I had never seen this actress before in anything, and to see this kind of performance, it was like mind blowing. So
Nice. Okay, so let's get into some of the stuff that we think we're hearing is going to debut at Telluride. I've got a few that I've been hearing, and I'm reasonably confident if I was a betting man. But I'm excited. For instance, I'll lead us off. I'm excited for Jason Reitman, which I believe is going to bring Saturday Night, which is a film he just shot very recently. And this is the tale of the first night of the making of Saturday Night Live. This is an amazing young ensemble. Gabriel Labelle coming off of course, The Fabelmans as Lorne Michaels. And Jason Reitman has a nice, strong history with awards, but it's been a moment. He's kind of taken a dip. So I'm very curious to see if he comes back around with this one.
I think he could, for sure. It depends on how I think people respond to this young cast. You know, you got Cooper Hoffman in there, Rachel Sennett, a few others. And also, too, one thing that's in this film's favor is that it's about the industry, right? It's about putting together a production, and we know how much Academy voters love seeing themselves reflected on screen at some degree or another, and how many of them have also guested on Saturday Night Live over the years. So if he could tap into what connects people to that show, and really capture the behind the scenes element in a way that people within the Academy point their finger and go, oh my gosh, like I know exactly what that's like, that feeling, that's going to resonate strongly enough for them throughout the rest of the year. And so one of the things that I think is so unique about this movie is that I believe it's 90 minutes long, and it takes all place within real time. That's a gimmick that could help it stand out in a major way too. So
yeah, I'm hearing the comp, obviously Birdman, that kind of behind the scenes real time thing. So that could be very exciting. Give me a nomination for something else you're excited for at Telluride we haven't seen yet.
Number one with a bullet, easily, Edward Berger's Conclave.
Right. Coming off of All Quiet on the Western Front, Edward Berger.
I was a huge fan of that film, a big fan of his too. I got a chance to interview him multiple times that season, met him, and I just really loved everything he put into that film. And it looks like from the trailer, we're getting the same thing here, where it just looks so meticulously well crafted, well shot. The score I'm really interested in hearing, especially because everyone remembers from All Quiet on the Western Front the whole blah, blah, blah. And I'm just curious, like, is it going to be something similar to that? Is it going to be different? But, you know, it's the same composer again. Ray Fiennes, man, like, talk about someone who
that should have like 3 by now. Really what's going on? Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's unbelievable to me that he hasn't been nominated since The English Patient back in 1995 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been way too long. And then you have all these other Oscar-less players amongst the cast too. Isabella Rossellini, John Lithgow, Stanley Tucci. And it's like, could this be any of their moment? You know, it's a great ensemble. And the one thing that I'm like most curious about is that I've recently heard that the film is rated PG. So I guess because these are all people of faith, no taking the Lord's name in vain and swearing in this film,
Makes
right?
sense.
So
Sure.
how are they going to craft this captivating thriller without maybe some of those more darker elements? I'm curious, but I also think too, I trust him enough to, find out, and I think he will deliver.
A couple others that I'm hearing about. Piano Lesson, which just dropped the trailer. I got a chance to see it when it was on Broadway. It's basically the same exact cast that was on Broadway, and I will say it was a great production. Sam Jackson, Daniel Deadwyler, John David Washington, directed by another Washington, with Malcolm. So this one could, I don't know, I feel like this could be a very actor-friendly award season contender for Netflix.
Well, I haven't seen the stage production, so I'm curious to know from your read on the trailer, what do you make of the trailer kind of focusing more on the
supernatural and the
supernatural, like almost thriller-esque in a way.
Well, to be honest, so this is an August Wilson play, and I had never read it, and that definitely was in the stage production. I will say, needless to say, if you see the trailer, it is way more cinematic than seeing it on the stage. But that supernatural element was definitely present in the stage production. So if they can elevate the visuals to warrant it being, on the big screen, which it feels like the trailer does, marry that with some really stellar performances on stage, I actually think this is one to really watch from my perspective.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I've heard a lot about Nickel Boys. I don't know if that's going to be. I know it's at New York, maybe or maybe not at Telluride. I haven't heard.
It's going to be here.
Okay,
yeah, for sure.
So
the thing about Nickel Boys,
yeah,
the thing about Nickel Boys that's so interesting to me is I'm wondering how art housey it's going to be.
Yeah,
because the adaptation is done by Ramel Ross, who previously did Hale County This Morning This Evening, a documentary that was nominated for the Academy Award and got a lot of critical acclaim. There's a very, very distinct vision for that documentary. And so when I'm thinking about this film, I'm wondering, are sensibilities going to carry over to this, or is this going to be something completely different? If it is the former, I think we're in for something that is going to be highly unique and is going to play around with its storytelling structure in a way that I could see critics going crazy over this potentially. Because it's going to stand out, right? And it's going to feel different to everything else that they're watching that might be more conventionally told. Or maybe this is something that is conventionally told. I do not know. Obviously, I haven't seen it yet. But at the same time, I think, Ramel Ross is someone who truly is a talent to watch out for in this space.
Also has a pedigree based on Colson Whitehead's novels, so that's definitely got the source material to draw upon. So others, I'll just rattle off quickly, and then we can move into Toronto. But I've seen The Outrun already. I don't know if you got a chance to see that one.
Yeah, I did.
That's Saoirse Ronan, who it's been a minute since she's been kind of in the awards space. I guess Ammonite was probably the last time she was talked about, but she's always one of our great actors, and she's got that and Blitz this season, though.
Yeah,
and that's from Steve McQueen. Blitz, I'm hearing, though, might not be a lead for her, so maybe The Outrun is kind of more of the play for Saoirse to get that. I don't even know. She already have 5 nominations. She has some absurd number for the young age she's at. So I think that's one to watch. I'm very curious about Josh Oppenheimer's first narrative, The End, which has my spirit animal Michael Shannon, Tilda Swinton, and Baby Girl. I'm very curious about Baby Girl, which is directed by the woman who directed, I believe, Bodies, which I thought was really entertaining and well done. And that's Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson. So those are all on my radar for what I'm hearing might be at Telluride.
I really hope Baby Girl is at Telluride. Based on the premiere status for Toronto, it's indicating that it won't be, but I'm hoping that that's not true because it is playing early enough in Venice that it could make the jump. It's just a question of whether or not if then Telluride chose to accept it or not, right? Yeah. Because I remember even last year, Ferrari played early enough in Venice that it could have gone over, and it didn't. Right. So this might be a case here with this, but Helena Rain, I loved Bodies, and I'm really, really excited to see how Nicole Kim and Harris Dickinson play off each other in this. And so whether it's at Telluride or if it's at TIFF that we get a chance to see it one way or another, I'm sure we'll have our opportunity.
so let's get it to TIFF, aka the Toronto International Film Festival. One of my favorites. I'll see you there, I'm sure. And it comes pretty much right after these two previous festivals we talked about, Telluride and Venice. There are a bunch of holdovers. There are some debuts. I guess first, maybe like on the debut side, is there anything jumping out at you, either that does have distribution or doesn't, that's going to be at TIFF?
Too many, way too many films. In fact, actually, my strategy every year at TIFF is I try to, it's hard, but like I don't go to Venice, right? And so I already have the benefit of Telluride and Cannes behind me, so I don't need to see those films. Anything that's playing in New York, I wait and hold off on those until New York. And there's a lot of high profile titles playing there this year, like Queer and The Brutalist, Hard Truths, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to wait. And, you know, but that's what I need to do, because with otherwise TIFF just has like this insane lineup of far too many films having their world premieres. And I'm interested in seeing all of them, like Mike Flanagan's The Life of Chuck with Tom Hiddleston. Gia Coppola's The Last Showgirl with Pamela Anderson, We Live in Time, Florence Pugh, Andrew Garfield, Unstoppable, Jarrell Jerome, William Goldenberg making his directorial debut there, Ron Howard's Eden, Night Bitch. Like I could go on and on and on here. And you know what? It's so funny because the other day I was making my schedule and I was getting so frustrated because I couldn't fit in as much as I wanted, that I finally just caved in and was like, you know what? I'll sleep on a friend's couch. I will move my flight to the next day and I will buy myself more time, because it's impossible. It's just impossible to squeeze everything in.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I'm literally in the midst of contemplating adding a day two, because I'm looking at the lineup and it's like, oh my God, there's too much. You hit upon a couple I want to mention there. I love Marielle Heller's work. This Night Bitch is her latest. Amy Adams, again, one of those awards darlings, but it's been a minute. And this sounds like a provocative, kind of crazy take, but I don't know. Marielle Heller, I really love Can You Ever Forgive Me, which I thought was underrated. Obviously, the Mr. Rogers film. And if this is, a good vehicle for Amy Adams, it's got my attention, right?
Definitely has my attention. Man, everything I've heard about this suggests to me that this is going to be even bigger swing than Emilia Perez, as I mentioned earlier. You're either going to jive with it, or you are going to just be not only off the train, but you are going to be far away and never land somewhere. Like I just hear that this is going to be a true love it or hate it movie for people. But then again, it's like you hear this stuff and sometimes it doesn't turn out to be true.
Right.
I do trust Marielle Heller. I agree with you. Her previous work is nothing but quality. And Amy Adams, it's interesting, right? Because I feel like she's at this point in her career where, people are constantly saying, oh, she needs a new agent or something. And it's like, everything that she does on paper
makes sense.
Should
100%.
work, and it makes sense for her. Yeah. So I do not believe this at all. I think she's just been unlucky with how some of these films have been received lately. And this could hopefully break that streak that she's been on. I mean, hell, even Vice, which had a very mixed reception, she still got Oscar nominated for it, so that's still a win for her technically.
Yeah, she's always great, no matter what the movie is. She delivers. So and I trust in Marielle. So I'm hopeful for that one. You mentioned another one that I don't think is on many people's radar because I don't think it has distribution yet. But folks that listen to the podcast know I'm a Tom Hiddleston longtime friend, and to see him in the hands of Mike Flanagan, who again is a beloved filmmaker. He's been doing a lot of TV lately. This is Stephen King, but think more, dramatic, sentimental Stephen King than supernatural, scary Stephen King. I don't know. On paper, I also look at, I'm sure you feel the same way. Like you look at where it's being premiered, when in the festival. It's premiering pretty early on in like evening, I think Friday night. I'm really hopeful this could be a big move for Tom and for Mike Flanagan. We'll see.
I hope so too. One of the things that I constantly am thinking about, like, because I look at these projects on paper and I try to figure out based on who's involved, where it's slotted, like you said, how many times is it screened throughout the festival, like which one of these is going to be the American fiction where it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and which one is going to just be this conventionally told film that just goes straight to streaming somewhere. Which one is going to completely flop and is going to be the talk of the town of, oh my God, that thing bombed and stunk the joint up,
Yep.
There's a lot of contenders for this, but I will say that I have the utmost confidence in Mike Flanagan to deliver. He truly has never failed, in my opinion, with either his films or his series. I think he is just always on the ball, and Life of Chuck not being such a macabre endeavor from him is something that I'm more curious than ever. I would say if it was like another horror film, I'd still be curious, but this has got me peak.
Same. One you mentioned in passing that's on my radar. I don't know if I'll have time to see this at TIFF either, because it's super long, but there's a lot of buzz about The Brutalist from Brady Corbet or Corbett. I never remember how to pronounce his last name.
I say Corbett, but Josh, just come see it with me in New York. Let's just set aside those 3.5 hours.
I think you're right.
Fine.
I think you're right. I'm sure I'll regret it as soon as it screens. And it's going to screw my schedule. You're right. Yeah. So it's like 3.5 hours, but I'm one of the few, I think, that really dug Vox Lux, which was talking about big swings and divisive. And this is Adrian Brody, and I don't know much about this, but some people have seen it, and there is definite buzz about this one. I'm just saying it because I want it on record.
The M word's been thrown around.
Oh, really? Okay, good to know.
And it's like when you see what it is about on paper, and they're just the still images they've released so far. The runtime. I don't know, man. Something about it really screams to me. Maybe it is warranting that great American epic M level type of film. I know the buzz is going to come out of Venice first, but this is going to be the hardest film for me to withhold on not jumping on it.
Especially if out of Venice people are raving. If people out of Venice are raving, are you still going to hold out for New York? You will. Because you're I was strong last year with like Hitman was one that came to mind where it was like everybody said how great it was. Then I had to listen to everybody at TIFF say how great it was. I held out. I'm gonna do it again here. It'll be fine. A couple more divisive ones briefly at TIFF. I've seen both of these. I think we're allowed to say you've probably seen at least one. Megalopolis. We should mention Coppola's Megalopolis will be at TIFF. And that. Again, big swing. I'm mixed on it, though. I really respect that Coppola got to do what he wanted to do. It is a true passion project. And then I also saw The Substance finally, which is wild. Oh my God.
It's insane.
It's insane. For those that don't know, this one will haunt me forever. Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley. I mean, the best comp is probably The Fly. There's a little, I don't know. Death Becomes Her. I can, having seen it now, I love that Demi Moore is getting this like comeback narrative and awards attention. I'd love to see her get in there, but this is a pretty gnarly movie. It's not going to be for everybody.
Amazing. I love that it just has this unsubtle, can I curse?
Yeah.
Fuck you mentality to everything that it's doing, because it is it's an angry film. It's a very, very angry film at what society has done to women in terms of making them feel a certain way about their bodies as they age. And so I love that this movie is just like in your face, abrasive. It pummels you into submission. And by the end, it's like, I was so high. I had like this huge moment of, I cannot believe that we're still going. I cannot believe that it's still up in the ante. I cannot believe what I'm seeing right now. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but like, you think the movie's over, you think it's hit its natural like endpoint, and it just keeps going, and to the point that at a certain point you have to just surrender yourself to it. And dude, that was probably my second favorite film from Cannes this year. I love that film, and I agree with you on Megalopolis. Like, I respect the ambition. I respect Francis Ford Coppola for, having the blank check to just do whatever the hell he wanted here. And there are some really interesting decisions throughout. But man, like, unfortunately, that film did not connect for me. And I will give it a rewatch at some point, just to see, now that I know what it is, if it hits any differently. But yeah, that was that's one that even, it's like, no matter how you personally feel about it, like, I think for him, Cronenberg, Schrader, there's a couple of these guys who have films this year, all of which are playing in Toronto. It's like, we should all be lucky that they're still making movies. And it's like our personal feelings, like at a certain point, just don't matter with regards to the film itself. It's just more about, hey, look at these guys who are still going,
No, totally. And I also do look forward to, these are the kind of films, both the ones we just talked about, that the discourse will be a lot of fun to talk, both Megalopolis, once more people see it, and certainly The Substance is going to be one that's going to be sticky. It's going to be a long and interesting conversation. A couple others.
What a
quickly.
word.
Yeah, exactly. A couple others we've mentioned, one in passing, one we haven't mentioned. So Queer will be screening at Toronto. Is it at Venice as well? I can't remember.
Yes. That's
Okay, it's at Venice.
Venice, skipping Telluride, going to TIFF, and then New York.
For those who don't know, this is Luca Guadagnino. Love Luca. And this is Daniel Craig. It does not officially have distribution yet, as far as we know. So this may or may not. It does feel like a kind of a no-brainer of an awards play, certainly for Daniel Craig. But very curious. That one could go either way. And the other one I wanted to mention, we haven't mentioned yet, which I don't know if you saw at Cannes, is The Apprentice. Which is
I did.
the Donald Trump film with Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong, which again, I don't think officially has distribution, but I think could pop up. I'm hearing maybe at Telluride. So curious to see if and when that lands in this fall season.
I don't know if I'm like surprised, or maybe I just shouldn't be, because having seen it out of Cannes, I did expect it to play at New York. I expected it to go to Toronto. I figured Ali Abbasi is a friend of Telluride. Like, that makes sense. That's one of the ones that even now, as we're recording this, if it ends up there, I won't be surprised. If it's not there, I won't be surprised, because it feels like the rest of the season has just been telling us so far, with its omissions from these other festivals, that nobody wants to touch it. Nobody wants to go anywhere near it, maybe until after the election is over. It's just unfortunate, because it's the kind of film that should be released before the election. And I have heard that there's behind the scenes stuff regarding one of its producers who is blocking it from getting distribution and into these festivals. So it's like trouble behind the scenes there. But at the same time, it's like, I do feel it's got to be one of those situations where the festivals probably do want it. I don't think that they would be the ones to shy away from it, because when have you ever heard of a situation of a festival, especially like with Ali Abbasi, who brought Holy Spider to a lot of these festivals? What was it called again? Broker? No. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the film before that one. Somebody's going to crucify me for forgetting, but it's okay. In any event, though, he's a friend of these festivals, and so I imagine they wanted him. I imagine they wanted Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong on their 100%. Red carpets or whatever, So it's like this. It's just unfortunate. Is the film great? No, but I think it would have at least generated a lot of publicity, for good or for bad. Publicity is still publicity, and Sebastian Stan, between this and A Different Man, is having the best year of his career, critically speaking, and so I want that for him. Personally, I want to see him get recognition for that.
Totally.
Yeah, man, it's unfortunate.
Let's wrap by talking about the films that aren't necessarily doing the festivals, but still might be players in award season. And certainly I am very excited for a few of these in particular. I'll rattle a few off and we can dive into whichever ones we want. Gladiator obviously has a long history with the Academy, and I think the trailer looks awesome, and Ridley is talking a big game. Awesome. This one can really admittedly go either way. It's been a while since Robert Zemeckis has delivered. I'd love here to be great. I have no idea, but that is another high concept one with Tom Hanks, Robin Wright, I see, I'll say Penn. I've been going back that far with Robin Wright. Nosferatu probably is my most anticipated of the rest of the year. Robert Eggers' return. And A Complete Unknown, which just wrapped production relatively recently, but I guess Searchlight saw an opening and Mangold's going to be able to deliver it. So that you could definitely see being something big. I mean, Mangold's delivered some Oscar-winning performances before. Bob Dylan, Timothée Chalamet. That sounds like a good thing on paper. Do any of those jump out at you as stuff that you're particularly excited for, feeling in your bones we'll be talking about a lot?
Yeah, I think Gladiator 2 is definitely going to be a big one for sure. Below the line in its technical aspects. Paul Mescal, I think, is just like on a rocket ship. Pedro Pascal's been on the rocket ship, and it just has so many great elements at play. Denzel Washington, I mean, you could kind of tell from the trailer like what the trajectory of his character is and how that's. I can already tell how the story itself of this movie is going to play out, but that doesn't matter, because if you're in the hands of a gifted storyteller like Ridley Scott, as long as the screenplay is good, that's always been my thing with Ridley Scott, is that he needs the screenplay to be good, and he can deliver. If the screenplay is not ironed out and not fantastic, then the movie will be either mixed or negative in terms of its reception. But man, for him to come out and say it's the best thing he's ever made, I'm like, dude, what do you?
Now, admittedly, there's a long history of Ridley saying some pretty insane things, so we'll see how much of that is bluster.
I'm more divided on. Yeah, sorry, you cut there a little bit. My bad.
Same. No, it's all good. Yeah, here I totally hear you. I would not put money on here being amazing, but I keep rooting for a Zemeckis comeback, and I don't know. We'll see.
No. It's like I was saying before about Tim Burton. It's like you want to see them recapture some of that former glory. I completely understand it, and I hope he can with this. If nothing else, the technicals of that film, visual effects, editing, I'm sure there'll be, well, actually, wait, what editing? But we'll see. And then Nosferatu, man, I agree with you. That's my number one most anticipated for the rest of the year. Robert Eggers, I think, is a truly gifted filmmaker. And I pray to God they withhold on showing us Bill Skarsgård in the full makeup before. Forget about trailers. Like, I don't want to see magazine covers. I don't want to see anything. I want to just go into that movie and not having known like what they've done with him, and then what the performance is like too on top of that. But I've been saying for a while now, and I'll say it here for your listeners. I have been saying that I think Nosferatu will be Eggers' ticket to the Oscars. Maybe not necessarily in terms of him getting a Best Director nomination or something like that, but The Lighthouse got a low nomination for cinematography. I'm expecting Nosferatu to outperform that, get more, and if that means picture director, great. But all I'm just saying is I think Oscars will go for this. Focus Features chose that Christmas release date for a reason. They could have gone with Halloween. They didn't. There is a very, very, I think, strong reason why position, and we'll find out.
Yeah, I think it's got all the ingredients. It's got an insanely talented cast. It's got Bill Skarsgård as the Nosferatu, the Dracula. It feels full circle to me. Bram Stoker's Dracula is one of my all-time favorites, and this is like a different take on that, but a similarly astounding cast. And yeah, the visuals, we just know from The Northman, Lighthouse, The Witch, that Eggers is just going to deliver an impeccably made movie. I cannot wait. And then let's wrap up on maybe on a Complete Unknown. Could go either way. It does feel like he always delivers. Mangold does deliver juicy stuff for actors. And I don't know, maybe that 1-2 punch of Dune and A Complete Unknown gets Timothée Chalamet back into the awards race.
He's my predicted front runner right now for Best Actor. How could you not, right? Biopic, musical. I know it's been done to death, but it's like one of those things where it's just a prediction. No one's seen it yet. No one knows. Okay. I'm just going by what they historically do. With that said, I agree with you. I think Dune helps him tremendously. I think that people want to reward him. He's such like a hot young actor in terms of his career and how he's been able now to open up these large films to tremendous box office between Dune and Wonka. I do think if A Complete Unknown also does financially well, that'll be like his biggest test as a leading man to see like how much star power does Timothée Chalamet really have. And I guarantee you that if the movie is financially successful and he proves that he could do that with a film like this, they're going to reward him for it. If the film doesn't do well financially, he still will probably be in contention. I'm sure the film will be good. James Mangold typically delivers. We might see Edward Norton.
I was going to say that
supporting actor.
He's incapable of giving an uninteresting performance, and that reads as a strong one for me. One last one. Actually, I'll mention. We didn't mention earlier. Any chance for My Beloved Challengers? One of my favorites of the year. Do you think there's going to be a revisitation of Challengers?
Personally, I don't. But what I would like to see happen, and what I think could happen still, is I do think that the score for Challengers will be in heavy contention maybe throughout the rest of the year. Maybe an editing nomination. There's some really, really unique editing tricks pulled in that film that I think could stand out for people. But I do think Queer will overshadow this in terms of which of the two Luca Guadagnino films are people going to go with.
Right.
But it remains to be seen. Queer still does not have distribution yet. Is there a reason for that?
We might still be talking about that a year from now if they hold it. Who knows?
Maybe it's a lone nomination for Daniel Craig and nothing else. It's
right.
tough to say at this stage, but if that does happen, it would be crazy if it happened. But if it does happen, then everyone can point to challengers and say, well, there is challengers. Let's get into the screenplay. Let's get Luca in there, and we'll see where it goes from there. One other film I'll throw this back at you really quick that we didn't mention that also I think is going to be pretty big is Wicked.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this like, traditionally you would say like, okay, it's going to get 6 Golden Globe nominations and no actual Academy nominations. I mean, I love what John Chu in The Heights was criminally, it was kind of lost to COVID, et cetera, but obviously a very talented filmmaker. And yeah, I mean, this one clearly is box office, poised for some box office glory. You think it has potential as an awards film too?
I mean, at the bare minimum, you got to put it in for costumes and production design. At the bare minimum, you need to, because everything I'm seeing from the featurettes they've released so far, everything we know about the production, not to mention too, this has such a baked in audience already from its Broadway production that, this film is going to make, if not $1 billion, close to it. Right. And I think that is going to be enough on people's radar that, like I said, at a minimum, those 2 categories. Going beyond that, though, I think people are forgetting that Cynthia Erivo was nominated for Best Actress. There's no reason why, if she doesn't knock this out of the park, she can't come back again.
Sure.
And I don't know why people are not acknowledging that a little bit more.
No, it makes sense. I'm curious. They have to add in an original song, so they get the like an original song nomination, like add a song from the original Broadway production. You would think that's always the no-brainer, but yeah, it's a good call.
And if they don't do it for this one, they still have part 2 to do it.
Well, they don't like to advertise that there's a part 2. There's no Wicked part 1. It's just Wicked.
Yeah.
Well, we'll look back at this and we'll see like what obvious glaring things we ignored, but I think we covered a good array. I am so excited for this season. Matt and I are very busy, so much so that we're going to see each other like in an hour at a screening for an upcoming film at one of these festivals. So I'll be seeing a lot of you. For folks that are listening or watching, check out Matt's stuff on nextbestpicture.com. They do a great job over there. He really dives in every single day on the site, on the podcast, and a go-to source for me and should be for you for all the awards season stuff. So Matt, I will be seeing a lot of you soon. Happy awards season. And thanks, man. Thanks as always.
Thank you, Josh. Looking forward to seeing you.
And so ends another edition of Happy, Sad, Confused. Remember to review, rate, and subscribe to this show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm a big podcast person. I'm Daisy Ridley, and I definitely wasn't pressured to do this by Josh.